And they knew mantras. They would whisper something or the other. And of course, some people were cured and other people were not. And we can be very skeptical or we can be very convinced. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it makes not much of a difference in terms of the final termination of our physical presence in the world. People are dying today. People were dying yesterday. We don't have medicine to cure death. But I do believe in modern medicine. And yes, we have expanded the lifespan due to the modern magics. But when trying to diminish these alternative therapies, mantra in this case, we are also trying to say that the world just suddenly woke up with rationality in the last 100 years or so. And in the long evolution of the humans for whatever, 500,000 years, they were all savages, incapable of thinking rationally. And everybody believing in magic was a completely irrational being. But interestingly, mantra is not just simply a Hindu or a Buddhist or a Jain thing. Believing in the power of speech is a global phenomenon. Every single culture has it. In whatever the form, every single culture has given some prevalence, some primacy to some sacred words, magical words. Whether in the modern fantasies or the ancient fantasies, sound always plays some role, some meaningful muttering, some meaningless expressions. They always have played role in human psyche, collectively or individually. And we should not simply dismiss this phenomena because today we are not able to explain how it works. We have to have some of these phenomena as not yet defined or not yet understood, rather than having the tendency to dismiss something that we do not have a proper explanation for. When I grew up in the village, even in my own family, my father, the people I met as healers, it was not like modern day occupation even. Because the number of healers I remember today did not do it as an occupation. They were farmers and they did not charge anything for healing. They were doing selfless service in a sense. There was no direct reward that I could count for. And why were they doing this? And significant number of people were still giving credit for such a healing. Of course, I welcome skepticism, but I must confess before we proceed further. Around the age of 8 till 12 or 13, I developed a particular physical symptom. I do not know what it is called. I would have my intestines as if twisted and making like a ball around the navel area. And it would hurt so much that I would be jumping up and down, screaming literally. And the villagers had some name for it. And then they would call a village healer, and then he would simply come and do some repetition of some sounds, mantras. And within 10-15 minutes, I would be recovered. This is my personal experience, not 1 time, 2 times, or 10 times. So much so that I started having a feel like, because that pain comes to climax, takes about half an hour to, I can feel inside my system that there is something not right. And then it goes to this extreme point where I would be throwing my hands and legs. So I knew that this is a symptom, and I would run to the house of that healer, and he would immediately see me, and then he would start repeating that. To the extent that at the age of 12, when I left my village for my education in town, Kathmandu, one of my biggest fears was what will happen to me when I have these symptoms, because my healer would not be there. I went to the healer and asked him, and he shared his mantra with me. And when I came to town and I had these symptoms 3-4 times, and I started repeating endlessly on my own belly, not knowing whether it is going to work or not. And then eventually that symptom subsided, and I never had to feel that ever again. I do not mind you telling me that it is working simply because of your convictions. I am sure it is. Your belief, and I'm sure it is. I have no doubt about it. But what this says is there is so much power inside my conviction, my belief, that it can alter my physical reality of actually going through acute pain. And who cares whether I'm just convinced that I don't have pain anymore, or whether the pain is cured, as long as I don't have to go through that severe pain. And there was another thing bugging me when I left the village. I grew up with all these ghost stories and scary things, and I had fear to be alone, and particularly in the dark. And I approached my father for that, and he taught me some practices of Hanuman. So I would not dare go out in the dark, but in 6 months or so of repeating these mantras, I somehow gathered courage to walk in the night, or be alone in the forest in the dark, or be in cremation ground or anything like that. And again, I agree with you that if you think it's just a psychology, fear is just a psychology, and you just suggested yourself that Hanumanji is going to come and protect you, and then you didn't feel fear anymore because you created mental ghost and you cured mental ghost. That's completely fine with me, because I am not saying the fear is something objectively outside of my mind. Fear is very much within me, but the cure is also within me. We have to accept that. If we can cure our fear, think how much of fear we are controlled by in our everyday life. Fear rules our everyday life. Fear stops us from dreaming about our life. Oh, I can never do this. I should not even think like that. Fear controls our success in life. We are scared to fail. And we are controlled and guided by fear. So if there are some mantras, if your conviction itself can help you cure from your fears, I think that's a positive thing. So then the issue comes then, what is this mantra? As you can see, the word mantra has, one is the man. Man and manas in Sanskrit means mind, meditation, simply to think. Tra is to protect. So it is never claiming that it is a cure in any other way. It is protecting by thinking. It is protecting in your thought. It is shielding by means of your thought. It is the power of thought. Mantra, let's boil it down. Mantra is the power of thought. So this power of positive thinking, power of intentional thinking, is something that we can cultivate. The whole practice of mantra is the science that we can build a positive thought stream, and with that thought stream, we can channel that thought stream towards an intentional object, and we can alter the actual physical reality. And then now it comes to the whole mantra shastra, the tantras that we call. There are so many tantras, and you don't need the tantra for the mantras, by the way, because there are Vedic mantras and there are non-Vedic mantras, Islamic mantras, whatever. In every culture, as I said, there are certain syllables, sacred sounds. So there is yet, just like Swamiji said, a talk about the dimension of sound also, which I need to. But first I'll go to the basic rubric of the makings of the mantra. We have to have a structure then to understand the mantra shastra. So the first would be, there are these sadhana, what we call, for meditative practices, for higher goals of self-realization, encountering the deity, transforming reality. And then you have the Siddha mantra, the mantras of application. And then ultimately you have the Savara mantras of immediate magical purposes. Most of the mantras circulated in society, whether in the north or in Maharashtra area or in Tamil areas, they are all these Savara mantras, meaning these mantras are not in Sanskrit language. They are in some mixed languages. Many of them will have some jumbled together words. Some are meaningful, others are with lost meaning. Maybe they had some original meaning, but most of them are not recorded even. And every word, though, is coming from the mouth of the person considered Mahasiddha. So more than understanding what is mantra, we need to understand what are these siddhas. The idea then is that one individual human being can be seated in meditation to the extent that he can cultivate the will, and then whatever he narrates becomes the mantric speech, that in his words there are certain powers hidden, that these words can transform external reality. Ultimately, meaning there is some type of magical power, although using the word magic has its own limitations. I'm just saying in a generic sense. So mantras are applied not just for the absolute self-realization like shastras we use, but for practical things like day-to-day practices, from headache to diarrhea to every single thing that people feel in society are using for. How do they believe that it works? Number one, in the case of the mantra, there is always a focus on a particular intonation, exact uttering, articulation of the sound. And that is basically where the issue of sound comes. Even in the Vedic times, they have the Sama Veda. The Vedas is specifically dedicated to the sound structure. In the Sama Veda itself, they have come up to the Sarja, Rishabha, so Sari, Gama, Padani, the whole sixfold structure of sound. We later connected them to the chakra system. So the basic idea is that there are these separate intonations, sounds that we can articulate in songs specifically. And these utterances from different centers of our vocal cords can have a different effect. That is why whether you go to South America or Africa or meet some Siberian shamans or shamans in Mustang or Dolpo in Nepal, you'll find that following rhythms and their high and low pitch sound articulation and the towards the efficacy for healing or whatever the practices they are using these mantras for. So rather than focusing on what it means, what we see there in among the practitioners is how to articulate these words, whether we are properly articulating or not. And so music, therefore simple drumming, for example, or any type of instruments you can see used by all the healers universally. It doesn't matter which culture we are talking about. And the more the basic tantric structures we like to read, the more universal we find. If we go to higher tantras, sophisticated philosophies, then we will go to Trika system or Mahartha system, very specific and very few practitioners. But if we go to these very basic practices of mantric healings, we see that there is this universal trait. And whether or not the same vocalization is used by all the people throughout the globe, at least there is something universal. From the perspective of Tantra Shastra, they always separate the sadhana and the prayoga. Sadhana is people do practices for their own self-transformation. All the tantric practitioners are wanting to practice some witchcraft or to become a healer. They are using mantra sadhana as a device for self-transformation. They are using it to cultivate their will to the extent that they experience the totality encased within their own epidermis. But the people who are using mantra, learning mantra for a particular application, healing in this case, that is called the kamya prayoga, meaning application for some desired, intended object. So in the kamya prayoga, the practice will be a bit meticulous, meaning if it is just sadhana, then whether you are maintaining the exact routine, food, and all these regulations is not so important. In application of mantras, so there are particular days for invoking particular deities for the mantra. For example, Hanumanji invoked on Tuesday or Saturday. There are particular mantras, for example, Pratyangira invoked in Ashtami or Chaturdashi. So these are the lunar 8th day or the 14th day of the lunar calendar. So particular day and also particular time. There are certain times that people are not supposed to recite those particular mantras, and other times they are supposed to recite them. So these rules and regulations become more important, more crucial as it comes to the application field of the mantras. And somebody practicing, doing tantric sadhana all his life may never be interested in doing any application or may not know any application also. It is not necessary for a serious sadhaka to be interested in the side of application. Of course, in modern times, people would be, what is the point then if we cannot do anything out of it? So the point for these people is that sadhana is for something else. The energy they are cultivating is towards transforming the self, burning down one's own karmic residue, and liberating oneself rather than looking for some gratification or healing or a magical effect of hurting others or anything like that. Because the belief comes that if you play with the flow of karma, then you will have to face the consequences. If you want to alter the flow of karma by application of mantras, then you will have to have some consequence of what happens to that particular flow of karma that had to be consumed. And you escape that by use of some mantra. It is like you broke the jail, ran away. You had to be jailed for 10 years and you got so many goons outside, they broke the jail and you escaped. That doesn't mean you are free. That only means you escaped right now. So from the wheel of karma, people always ask, can you help me on this one? But then somebody who is helping you escape the particular flow of karma for that moment, and that karma is not gone. It has to come back to bite you. So for the sadhakas who are serious sadhakas, they are not trying to use these mantras for immediate application or kamya prayoga. But if you are anyway going towards a kamya prayoga, then every mantra has this meticulous process, like the igniting the power of the mantras called udipana, bringing consciousness into mantra called mantra chaitanya. And so one has to also learn those practices of how a mantra becomes efficacious, like effective. For mantra to work now, then, we have to think of two aspects. One is its purely sound aspect, another is mentation aspect. In the sound aspect, as I've already said, there are these different Sarja, Rishabha, Dhaivata, these different swaras from the different levels of the vocal cord that you can learn from the classical singers. And then the other aspect within the sound system is the going from the expressed level, articulated sound, like you can hear another person is speaking, to personally audible only, like a whispering within, only you can hear the words, to without wiggling your tongue, you have only the sound coming in your mind, to the level that only you can see the thoughts forming. So when mantra is brought to the level of thoughts, you are tapping into those thoughts. We name that Pashyanti. You are able to see it. When you are able to feel a little bit, whisper, also see it as a thought, we call that the intermediate speech of Madhyama. Madhyama. And when you express it outside, other people can also hear, we call that Vaikhari. And there are different mantras also, again associated with the Vaikhari state, like the longer mantras are supposed to be expressed, articulated out loud. And the medium-sized mantras are generally longer than 10, 12 letters to 25, 30 letters, are to be whispered, like the Gayatri mantra, for example, is supposed to be whispered. And then some short real seed mantras, the Bija mantra, you are supposed to only visualize and not articulate out. And in that process, the articulation conjoins with visualization. You are creating the deity image, giving presence to the deity image, and cultivating the will towards this transformation, towards this happening. And the real practice is called Purascharana, the meaning, the repetition simply. So you have to have certain rules and regulations on food and time and seat and all these things. And then you repeat these mantras 10,000 times, 100,000 times, or 1,000,000 times. And that many, many repetitions constitute that perfection. Now the question comes, isn't it silly to keep repeating the same thing when you could learn so many other new things? The mantra practice sadhana is not about learning so many mantras. It is about having a deep bond with those particular sound structures that you do not need to even think about it. The mantra should come to you on its own. So that is called mantra siddhi, meaning the mantra comes on its own. You do not need to even think about it. Mantra reverberates through your body. Now, how can that mantra reverberating through your body, if by you repeating so many times, get any effect? How can it transform reality? You know, reality is concrete. Your mind is different. You are imagining something. You are expressing, whispering, whatever nonsensical sound. How can this even work? This question comes from this particular physical philosophy that has been the dominant philosophy for the last 100 years. Meaning, material reality is the only reality. And if there is the mind, that's a completely separate phenomenon. Mind does not have an effect or interaction over the body. Matter is real, mind is not real. And if mind is real anyway, there is no interaction or transformation or overpowering, changing the reality of matter. Either the philosophy is of a Advaita, singular reality of matter only, matter meaning inertia. There is no sentience, there is no consciousness, only physical thing is real. That is one idea. And another is if the duality. The duality is there is the mind and there is the body. There is the spirit and the body. And they can never meet. They are completely separate. They are two separate domains. But it is not just a Hindu culture. If you go to any culture that is coming from the convictions on mantras, they are also coming from the philosophy You think for philosophy, how can these illiterate people have any philosophy? Okay, you do not need a PhD to have a philosophy. So these people are coming with the philosophy of the mind over matter, simply. From any part of the world, they are coming from the conviction that mind is the basis for something called the matter. There is no primacy of matter. There is the primacy of consciousness. And consciousness is not effect, but the cause of what we call material reality. If we just flip our understanding of reality upside down, then we go towards this particular type of philosophy that is needed to address all these things of the last civilization, that of, let us call, the mantra civilization, or the civilization of consciousness, or the civilization of the mind. Because today we are living in the civilization of matter. Everything is only matter. And by matter, what they are saying is the physical entities, inertia, that mindless, without any consciousness, without any feeling. So now, in today's times, what do we have? We have the healers. We have not gotten rid of those magic healers anyway. We have the healers that we have given a different name. We call them counselors. And we call that some kind of therapy. And what do? They give you, they listen to you, and they give you some suggestions. Again, they are not surgeons. They are not giving you some drugs. And if they ever give you drugs, like psychiatrists, they are giving you the drug, like, purified hashish or something like that. So they are drugging you, basically. But the rest of the thing, if you actually ever have the counselor, go sometimes to any of the indigenous culture healers and participate in their sessions. And they will have little different drama than these modern therapists, because they will be using drums and they will be chanting, muttering, and all the invocations and positions, and you will be like, oh wow, what is going on? Just like if you go to the modern counselors, they will have some certificate, some diploma, all these different things. Basically, they are selling you what you believe in to be true. Certificates works like possession. For the classical times, if a shaman is in trance, and many people come to believe in it. Where is that power coming from? The power is from within you. All the mental problems are your problems that started from you, from within yourself. Today, we are at the face of having roughly 40 to 50% of the people aged 50 or above having psychological problems. That is the modern reality. And who are these people who are controlling the domain of the mind? The people either giving you drugs, just like the ancient shamans use psychedelics, they are using the same psychedelics or some different mind-numbing substances. I don't see any difference. If they were wearing feathers, modern day therapists are wearing ties, because you like people, you find people wearing ties more trustworthy than the people wearing feathers. It's all about how you like your reality presented to you, what convinces you. It is the power is within your mind. And if your mind is ready to accept it, it will start working. If your mind is not ready to accept it, it will never work. But I find these modern day therapists rather lost, because if you are thinking that the basic foundation for modern therapy is Freudian psychoanalysis, read Sigmund Freud more closely, and you will see how much flawed his philosophy is, and to what extent it is grounded on faulty premises of understanding human nature, understanding our mind, understanding our deep psyche. And therefore, when we are presenting something in a new box and we are ready to buy it, we need to really look carefully. What if this is just another bottle to serve the same or maybe worse wine? So I am skeptical in both ways, but I am positive towards both. And I do believe that the mantric healers are discredited more than the modern therapists, and the mantric healers should get more credit than they are given, for they deserve a better credit than the way we are making a mockery of this whole system, simply because this does not fit with our modern understanding of reality. So we are trying to reduce our reality simply to physicality. And that is why we have lost the practical dimension of mantra. Now, what type of mantras can or do people use in different cultures? I can only tell you from where I came from. I mentioned Hanumanji. The same way, the more application, there are some deities towards application, and then other higher deities. Like you do not get people invoking Pashupati or Guhyakali for some healing or mantra applications. You will find Hanumanji or Nrsimhaji, Nrsimha, the man lion form of Lord Vishnu. The mantra, Ugram Viram Mahavishnum Jwalantam Vishyato Mukham Nrisimham Bhishanam Bhadram Mrityum Namamyam. Ugram Viram Mahavishnum Jwalantam Vishyato Mukham Nrisimham Bhishanam Bhadram Mrityum Namamyam. Ugram Viram Mahavishnum Jwalantam Vishwato Mukham Nrisimham Bhishanam Bhadram Mrityum Namamyam. So this is the Nrisimha mantra. So I know generally I do not offer to recite these, but some of these mantras are considered okay to recite. So how is this recitation supposed to work? First, you visualize, you bring to the fore of your mind an image. You associate that image with the mantra, just recite it. And you already have a target application, what you are intending it for. And you have some gifts you offer to the deity, because you try to transform your intentionality into some physical reality. So you are offering some physical substance accordingly. And so there are these prayogas of Kartavirya in Tantra Shastra. There's this Kartavirya prayoga. There's a Hayagriva prayoga. There's a Pratyangira, very ferocious deity, Pratyangira prayoga. And there is a Mrityunjaya. So Mrityunjaya prayoga is very common in India. So very many of these applications I just wanted to share with you today what is the basis? Where is it coming from? What type of reality do these people believe in to have the philosophy of mantra? And therefore, I said that we have to start giving primacy to consciousness over matter, give primacy to the mind over matter, and how our mind interacts and how our mind changes, alters the physical reality. But is this always effective? That always is where it is problematic. Because honestly, I don't think any doctor can say absolutely that this drug will always work without any exception or any problem. So I think that we are completely discrediting one type of reality at the cost of another type of reality. And we are not willing to collect the data for the efficacy of these practices. Particularly, I know in modern cities and educated villages, we may see the decline. It is not because these practices are less effective there, but because we have condemned such practices. And we need to also be keenly aware of the fact that these practices, if have any bearing of truth, are harmful for business. Because how can you commercialize the sound that anyone can articulate and make profit? So we have to think not just philosophically, but also this issue as a socio-economic reality. And I do personally believe that there is a tremendous power in our meditation, in our thought. Our thoughts can create, alter, transform reality. There is not always the case that there is this matter over the mind. There also is the case of the mind over the matter. And therefore, we have to be keenly aware, keenly conscious of the interaction between the mind and the body. And if our problems are located in our body, the solutions can be found in our own mind. And that particular mind, the solution in the mind, in the act of meditation, when specifically channeled, is called the mantra practice. Thank you so much. Now I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Timalsina. This was a wonderful talk. Let's go ahead and begin with questions first from anybody here in San Diego. If you have a question, then just take the microphone, and then I'm going to make sure Dr. Timalsina can hear you. Did you have a question? Okay. All right, then you're next. And then also, if you have a question online, please raise your hand, just and we'll get to you also. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Mike. Very quick question. I'm studying the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And
can you hear Dr. Timalsina? Okay, good.
Yeah, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, yeah.
One of his concepts is, he refers to it as japa, and that's one of the reasons I came here. I'm assuming japa and mantra are essentially the same thing, so I wondered if you could just let me know about that. Thank you.
Patanjali refers only twice. One time explicitly the mantra in chapter 4, but in chapter 1 on pranava. So in the case of pranava, there is the meticulous visualization of meaning. Tad japa, tad artha bhavanam. Meaning the japa, what is repetition, Tasya vachakaha pranavaha. So the name for the God, Ishvara, is Pranava, Om. And what is the repetition? The repetition is the visualization or mentation of the meaning. So in this context, as I said in my talk, that for the single syllables, there is only visualization. It is the same case because Om is a single syllable. There is only visualization. And then in Mani Mantra Oshadi, in chapter 4, Patanjali talks about the power of mantra. Also, in the same context, he adds that the gems also have power, and also Oshadis, drugs, substances, herbs, they also have powers. And so today, if we are convinced of the power of the herbs, Patanjali in his time was convinced of the power of mantras as well in transforming reality or achieving siddhis. So mantra, there are both types of practices, the long type of mantras in the last section, and then the early is the single syllable, only visualization. That is the way I understand that Patanjali has categorized mantra practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Timalsina. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, so I've been pursuing sort of religious studies for the sake of my health. It was first Christian Science and then Kriya Yoga and now Vedanta. There's something in Kriya Yoga about worldliness being stuck deeply in the subconscious when it comes to preventing healing. Even if I know through the scriptures and through books what it is that I'm supposed to believe, which is spirit over matter, it seems like to me there's still something deeply embedded that I can't really get at within my mind that is preventing any sort of progress. Is there anything, well, is it possible that I should pursue mantra by first eliminating that sort of residual worldliness stuck in there, or is that something that mantra can actually heal and, help me overcome?
In my personal experience, having doubt does not stop mantra from working, but I stand corrected because, again, I cannot universalize this. Because when people look like too believing, I don't want you to buy it. Just like when people feel too skeptical, I don't want you to buy it either. I want to believe in, when people say, oh, I believe in these things so much, they are telling themselves, they want to believe in it. They don't believe in the bottom of their heart. They have not let the demon of doubt out. They are just cultivating inside their heart. They are repressing this poor goblin in the heart, cultivating, nourishing it. So let this demon of doubt out. Everybody has doubt. God has given you doubt. Our nature has given you the capacity to doubt. Everybody has doubt. Only insane person cannot have proper doubt. Okay? If somebody says, I have zero doubt, either he's like absolutely Mahasiddha, gone to the climax of having only one thought, or he's a cheat dying like a lying shit. So therefore, it's okay to doubt. We have doubt. I have doubt. I have always doubt. Is it going to work? And then sometimes it works. And then I'm like, but I don't know if it is really working. Why is it not working every time? But you know what? Then what if it is working? And then I get a repeated result, higher frequency than it is supposed to be, not like a 50-50 type, but I would say more like 75 working and not working. And then I would say it's better to take a chance that way. Not that I'm 100% sure, but the bigger question you have is, can we balance this? The real balance I find is only when you are willing to seriously doubt. And that is why Shastras are for. That is why we have these Vedanta and Agama Shastra and Nyaya Shastra to teach you how to doubt. Because our doubt, we have never cultivated this doubt thing properly. We have treated this doubt as a demon. We have never cultivated, taught it what to doubt for. And then if we train the doubt to be more rational, and then it will see the limits of doubting. What is the extension to which we can question? We think we can question out everything in the world. We have never allowed the logical mind to explore the zenith. Allow your logical mind to explore the zenith, meaning combine shastras with sadhana. Only when you are trying to do sadhana, not doing shastras, you are blindly following something. Today you will believe in it, tomorrow you will also believe in it. But at the crucial moment, you will not be able to believe in it because you have always repressed the demon of doubt. And it will come out. You know, at the time, you don't know whether it's going to work or not. So this is like a real doubting situation of, you know, there's a story in Hindi that one guy had a strong conviction in Ram and jumps off and he lands just chanting Ram and he's safe. Another guy has a strong conviction on Allah and he just says Allah, Allah, and then he lands very safe. And one guy, what if these both, this or that, Allah Ram, and he just goes flat down. So the idea is, you know, it's not about trying to be nice with everything. It's just having a strong conviction and cultivating within the basis of that conviction. But just because you have allowed your doubt to question it doesn't mean that it stops you from cultivating your mind, because that doubt also knows that, okay, what if this is a bad doubt? You have to start doubting the doubt itself. Allow that. Let that doubting the doubt also come to your mind. What if you are just questioning nonsensically to the extreme? And so I love healthy skepticism. Healthy skepticism is good. And it will not hurt your sadhana. And healthy skepticism is shastras. Shastras are not trying to blindfold you. Therefore, please allow yourself to study shastras. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Timalsina. Okay, Nishant, let me go ahead.
Yes, Acharya ji, we miss you very much on the West Coast, Prabhu. Please come back and visit us. We're missing you.
Yeah, me too. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
We're
all wondering how you brought the Lingam. Mahadev came over there. We're very, very sad.
Some of you guys should move over here. It's good.
Yes, Acharya ji, when the Kali comes, we'll come.
Okay, I really want her to come too. We are working on it. Thank you so much.
Okay, Acharya ji, so right now I'm helping Swami Medhananda ji with his new book on karma and rebirth. And he's writing it from the lens of Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, etc. So I have 3 questions I'm asking on his behalf. The first is, can we conclude from Paramartha Sara verse 5, Shiva Grihita Pashubhavat, you know, like, or statements like Bhoktaiva Bhogya Bhavena, can we conclude that Shiva himself has actually assumed the form of the Pashu and is actually undergoing the 6 changes and transmigrating? That's the second thing is, does Abhinava Gupta give Pashu status to Sthavara? Because in IPVV, he seems to say Brahmadi, Brahman to an insect. The question is, does the plant have a status of Jiva? Can I extend this to insentient beings? Like, it's just like a presenting as Jara, but it's actually inert. Actually not inert, actually conscious. And finally, is there universal salvation? From Tantra Loka, we get the impression that Shiva Svatantra, whether through Krama or Akrama, will always unfold. Is that true for every Pashu? Is there any Pashu who is doomed to like cycle the wheel of birth and death endlessly without ever revealing his own nature to himself? No.
Whoa, that's difficult. Well, okay, let me try. So the first thing is absolutely yes, that from the Saivite perspective, it is Shiva, a singular reality expressing itself into the manifold. There is no doubt about it. Don't ask about the why question. Why would Shiva want to do that? Why should he not want to do that? It's just like being alone is boring too, and then you become many and you get bored of being many, you become one. It's just a constant play. From the Saivite perspective, it's just a play of Lord Shiva. So that is totally okay. The second question was related to Pashu. Pashu Bhava is not just simply being bound, it's also recognizing the limitations. Your pet dog does recognize occasionally what it's not supposed to do. Even the animals in the forest do know their limits of where they should not go, walk out of their territory, for example. So Pashu Bhava, Pashu is pasa, to be tied. When you have the concept of being tied, then you are qualified to be a Pashu. Are rocks Pashu? I doubt it. I don't think so. Because they do not have the consciousness to recognize them being tied. But is it inertia then? There's nothing as inertia. They just lack the prana flowing through to recognize themselves as being Pashu. But consciousness is the only and foundational reality. Therefore, even rocks will have the same essential nature of consciousness, but they will not have the pranic flow of the transformation of consciousness into prana, and then to breathe, to live, and then that would allow them to recognize Pashuta limitations. Pashuta means limitations. So the rocks don't have the realization of limitations, but they are not bereft of the foundational consciousness. And what type, we are just, again, then the big problem is how can rock become? So then we are simply thinking the word Chaitanya in a very different way in two different cultures. The modern Western culture uses consciousness in intentional, like having a thought, the mind. We are not talking about that, but this is a foundational basis for something to exist. And that is all permeating, and even the rocks. And nothing is outside of the domain of consciousness, but that doesn't mean that everything is animate and living, or everything is going through the karmic process. And at least that is what I think Abhinava Gupta would also agree to. But it's just my limited reading. Thank you so much.
Did that answer your question, Nishant? Did I lose him? Okay. All right. Well, let's get to the next person. Christian, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, yeah, thank you. My question is there any practice or suggestion that you would have to help us improve our visualization and ability to visualize while chanting mantra or in general?
I can broadly say that when it comes to actual practice, I give a specific course of sadhana from the particular lineage I come from. Mine is not the only lineage. There are many, many lineages, and you are free to join Vimarsha Foundation, and please come through the process. And yes, I do teach people in the public if they are seriously interested in it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Geeta, go ahead and unmute yourself. We'll have first. Go ahead. Not yet. Go ahead, Geeta. Go ahead.
We do miss you in Southern California. I went to your last Shiva Ratri at your house, and I was so looking forward to going every year. And then you were gone. Please come again.
Thank you so much. I miss San Diego already. My family, it's all of you guys. Yeah.
I don't hear you.
I miss Swami Harinama a lot. And this is not supposed to be said, because Swamis are not supposed to miss anybody. They are supposed to be completely dissociated from our type of, this karmic bondage. But I can miss because I'm not a Swami, so I can miss Swamiji.
No, Dr. Timalsina, we miss you. You're part of our family here. We figure you're just being extended out there, but again, you'll come back to San Diego, your real home. All right?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Was that your question, Gita?
No. My question is about mantras at Majjhima and Pashanti. Now, when you were talking about Pashanti, there's no sound whatsoever. Is that the one that's going on like in the subconscious, even as you sleep?
Absolutely, Gita. That there is like, if you repeat mantras too many times, you will feel one thing. Like if you wake up in the middle of the night,
Yeah, we can hear. No, we can hear you, Dr. Timalsina. It must be Gita's headset.
Okay.
We can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Philly,
So,
here.
Okay, I'm gonna continue talking then. So if you are repeating the same mantras for so many times, this is the symptom. What will happen? You are doing something else completely, and then all of a sudden you think back, and then the mantras appears to be repeating in your head. You wake up in the middle of the night and you find yourself repeating the same mantra. You wake up in the morning, mantra is continuously going. Even though you are dreaming, mantra was going. So it means that you have recited that mantra to the extent that the mantra has become the baseline programming of your thoughts. And that is what I mean by mantra practice. And that is when mantra has gone to the Pashyanti level. So you can totally see that mantra has become the basis for your thoughts. Whatever you are thinking, good thoughts, bad thoughts, at the basis, there's always the mantra going on. But in the higher level, like uttering level, Vaikari or Madhyama, you do not have that base level mantra going all the time. Thank you so much.
Dr. Timalsina, would you say that's also mantra Chaitanya? When the mantra becomes awakened?
Yeah, that is when mantra is awake. And if that is happening to you, be careful. Because then mantra is a very powerful entity. What do I mean by this is you have to hold the mantra within your grip, because you still want to live in this reality, right? You don't want to be Paramahamsa and, you want to still be driving in California, maintaining your job and something like that. So then you have to learn to tame, meaning the thoughts, you have to learn how to keep that under your control. And then we generally switch students into other mantras. They say like, okay, Guruji, I don't want to practice other things. I'm so attuned to this. I know you are attuned to this. That's why I'm teaching you something else. Why? Because I don't want you to get crazy, dragged down by this mantra and be so powerful, but Mahasiddha, but I want you to live in this reality for a little bit longer. So this is why mantra practice is very powerful, and mantras, there is a real thing called mantra chaitanya, awakening of these sounds, but then you have to learn to tame that, or have your thoughts under your grip, because you are playing with your mind. You learn to cultivate the power of your will, but what if that will takes you haywire to not be applicable to live this regular life? So therefore, that is also something you need to be mindful about. Thank you.
And Dr. Timalsina, one last thing. Gita, I'm just going to go ahead and inject here. We had a Swami who used to talk about, he'd hear the Anahata Dwani, so the eternal Om. What is your conception of what that means here?
Eternal resonance, inner sound can be, it starts from the, Anahata is already the internal sound, but that is not only one type, Again, there are 10 variations of the subtle anahata, unstruck sound. And then first are more like a loud sound, but the last one is the, they start from chinchini, chiravaki, and all this. And the last is just the sound of the empty sky itself, like a feeling only. And Om Kham Brahma, that is the sound of the sky, that is the Brahman itself in the form of the sound. What is that sound? This is only the potential of giving rise to this whole reality. So then you become attuned to that, simply hearing that emptiness, some people like to call it. We are calling ka, that is like empty space too. We are also calling it ka. Om Kham Brahma. That is Brahma. That is the Brahma. This is the serenity. This is the total emptiness, stillness of the mind. And that is what all these external buzzing, humming of the mantras are supposed to finally dissipate, dissolve, and you are supposed to go ultimately to the single pranava, Om. And then that is when you will have this anahata, ultimate anahata. Even in anahata, there are these different gradings, and you go to ultimate anahata. Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have a question. Gita, do you have, okay, make it, yes, go ahead.
My main question in that preface was whether if the mantra's going on subconsciously, like for meditating on the mantra, don't you have to bring it into where the focus is just on that and you are really focusing on the words of the mantra?
When you reach to the state that there is an uninterrupted mantra recitation going on, you still have to maintain your regular practice, regular hour or regular counting, because that is an unintentional or unintended effect, a natural consequence of your practice building to that. But you cannot stop your practice, daily practice, because now you have mantra going uninterruptedly and start thinking, or you have become Mahasiddha and imagining yourself like Ramakrishna. So come down to daily routine and daily reality, and then keep cultivating the same state. And so that will be, the consequence will be in the background. And you are the one controlling the mental residues and resonances, basically. These are a constant repetition is a resonance, but this is the first primary thing, is the mantric focus and your regular everyday intended sadhana. That is most important thing.
Thank you. We have a question here. Go ahead.
What does visualizing mean?
To visualize or bhavana simply means to cultivate in the front of your mind a particular image or a particular thought or a particular sound. When you are creating a particular image, let us say the image of Ganesha, Ganapati, because he's the easiest one. Think of the head of an elephant and then the giant big body, and down there just a tiny rat. It's funny and it's very easy to visualize. Slowly, like as if you are a painter, you are an artist, you are carving, and you make a sketch in front of you, you make a color. So you are animating that image in front of your eyes. That is one visualization. You have a thought. That is also visualization. You think you do not like Mr. P, and because you were very funny yesterday. And now you think that you channel the opposite thought. You think that he's a very nice person. And then you are cultivating this opposite thought, and you constantly focus on the niceness when he was kind to you or whatever. And so you are reprogramming your mind. You can cultivate compassion in your heart. You can cultivate love in your heart. You can cultivate practically any positive thought, but some people cultivate a lot of negative thoughts, because for positive thoughts, you need to practice. For negative thoughts, you don't need to. You keep repeating anyway. So therefore, negative thoughts become more and more powerful because we allow them to repeat in our system. We do not intentionally allow to repeat the positive thoughts as much. So visualization can also mean to repeat the same thought of how much you love something or the other, how much kind you are towards some people or some ideas. So the third thing is for just generating a particular sound. Just imagine Om, and then you are not repeating Om, you are just simply imagining the sound coming from you, the thought. You are tapping into your own thought of Om, and you are sticking to that. That is also bhavana. So bhavana or visualization can be more manifold, but these are the primary elements of visualization that we all learn in the basic Tantra practice. Thank you so much.
And last question, then we'll have to wrap it up here. Nishant, go ahead.
Yes, Acharya, one more thing about universal salvation. Will everyone who recognizes Pashutwa be free? And if so, what agamic support that can I get for universal salvation, do you think?
There is only one salvation from, there are two philosophies. One is like I get my salvation or liberation, and I help you liberate, and you help the others. And there is another understanding that it is Lord Shiva creating this manifold, and it is Lord Shiva attaining the liberation. So there is only one realizing, only one bound. So it's kind of, what is the ultimate thing? Don't ask me, because this is too big a question for my head. But ultimately, we are in this process. I, as an individual, a bubble, can burst. And that's okay. That's my liberation. Because I realize myself as water and air and nothing more, and my liberation has occurred. But the final flow of the cosmos, the entire ocean is not bubbles free, right? And that entire ocean filled with the tides and the bubbles, we are calling that Shiva consciousness. And within that singularity, these bubbles come and go, new realities unfold, new limited beings come and dissolve. This is, I would call, spontaneity, swatantra, of Shiva, the basic reality absolute. And this swatantra is a constant unfolding of the manifold. And so from that point, bondage is not as much of a trap. The world, is not much of a trap. It's a realization. Being outside, not even wanting to burst and be the ocean. It doesn't matter. If you are a bubble, continue as bubble. What does it matter? As long as you realize that this is just one bubble and nothing more, then other bubbles, the reality has never changed. The absolute basis as a Shiva nature has not changed. It's the same. It's just coming in different tides. Every tide is new tide, I don't think there ever can be the exact same tide. So all these droplets, swinging from one extreme to the other, swirling in different forms, and the air hitting God knows where. So all these different forms we are coming through. But at the end, the basis is the same. Being in limited body, that's okay. Being boundless, that's fine too. Makes no difference. And that is when that is the realization, at least in my opinion, that's when that's the realization has dawned, that you have realized the basis as Shiva. Nothing is going to change after that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Timalsina. I mean, your talks are like these 7-layer chocolate cakes. They're rich, they're thick, and afterwards we just start to see that more and more comes up, the texture. So I think ultimately we have to have you here for a retreat, because part 1, part 2, we have to have you for part 3. So you please let me know the next time you're coming to San Diego, and we can set up some type of retreat, because the mantra is such a rich topic. It deserves more than just our sort of 1-hour talks. And we should also do a little bit of practice as well. So I really appreciate and thank you so much for everything you offer. I want to make a couple announcements, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Timalsina to end it in with a chant. First is that Swami Sumanasana will be speaking here next Saturday, and then 2 weeks from today, we're actually having a guest Swami, Swami Atma Gyanananda from Washington, D.C. So he was many, many years ago in Trabuco. He's a wonderful speaker, wonderful sadhaka. He's a Swami in Washington, D.C. He's coming to San Diego for, I think it's been more than 15 years, I believe, something like that. So really, if you can come, try to come, because he's a wonderful speaker and you'll really be enriched by his presence. So thanks again for everybody. Thank you for the beautiful questions. And I'd like to have Dr. Timalsina close again with a chant for us.
Shri Nathadi Guru Trayam Ganapatim Pithatrayam Bhairavam Siddhaugam Vatukatrayam Padayugam Duti Kramam Mandalam Viram Dvesta Chatuska Shashti Navakam Viravali Panchakam Sriman Malini Mantra Raja Sahitam Vande Guror Mandalam.